New rules at the White House. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders releasing new mandates at news conferences which state this: journalists will ask a single question and then will yield the floor to others. A follow-up question may be permitted at the discretion of the president. Failure to respect these rules may result in suspension or cancellation of a journalist's hard pass. This outline, of course, coming after officials dropped the effort to suspend CNN reporter Jim Acosta's press pass. Joining us right now is former White House Press Secretary under President Trump, America First action-packed senior advisor and author of the briefing book, Sean Spicer. Sean, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
New rules after the whole Acosta mess a couple of weeks ago. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, I think it's sad and unfortunate that it's come to this. You have to mandate professional behavior and decorum because a few bad apples are trying to make it about themselves and make a show of what is supposed to be an opportunity for journalists to ask the president questions. As you saw at that press conference, there's up to 100-plus members of the media from all sorts of backgrounds and publications that are seeking to ask the president of the United States a question, and yet one journalist in particular wants to monopolize it for himself and make it into the Acosta show. So I think in the past there have been sort of unwritten rules in terms of how you behave and respect the office of the president. This one individual has clearly blown through them, and now we've come to the point where we've got to treat them like children and put down rules and regulations so that people can actually behave. And it's not just about the president, right? I think mostly it comes down to treating other journalists with the respect that they deserve.
I don't think there's anything negative to have certain rules for decorum when you're speaking to the office of the president. I mean, I don't. What do you guys think? I mean, I want to stand with journalists, but at the same time, I think there should be a respect for the office of the president.
But if the White House had done this first, Sean, and just said, here are the rules of conduct that we're going to lay out, rather than just pulling the guy's hard card, again, you end up losing that initial battle. This happens over and over again, where it seems like that somebody at the White House is behaving rashly and not stepping back and taking a breath, which, quite frankly, if the president had just done when Jim Acosta was trying to grab that mic or keep the microphone from that young woman, if he'd just stepped back and folded his arms and said nothing and said, I'm ending this press conference in 5 minutes unless Jim Acosta sits down, again, he would have won, and it wouldn't have been a win for Jim Acosta.
Yeah, I think that's partially right, and as I said at the outset, I think it's unfortunate that it's come to this because you've been able to exist all along without having to go this route. I think that what it's going to mean is I agree with Dagan in the sense that I don't know why he called on him in the first place. But if you don't call on him, then they do the antics as well, and they start going, I haven't been called on, and he yells at it, and he jumps up and down and disrupts him in the first place. So the court basically said that the CNN, in this case, Jim Acosta, had a Fifth Amendment right to due process. So the White House is basically complying with the court order and saying, great, then we will have a process put in place. We'll notify them what the rules are and what the procedures will be if you violate them. But this is a result of a court order that said that in this particular case that there was not necessarily a First Amendment right to enter the White House, but that there was a Fifth Amendment due process rule to ensure that there was a way to know that what they had violated and that there were rules so that they could follow them in the first place.
That gets to the whole thing, Sean, and that is there's no law that says the White House has to have these press conferences. They can set the rules,
right,
any rules they want. And so the court, I think, was stretching things. The White House can do whatever it wants on press availability with the president.
And not only that, but CNN has been criticizing and poking President Trump for the last 2 years. So, and then he fights back, and then it's like this big thing that he's fighting back.
Well, I think this makes it just these press conferences much more orderly. This is how corporate earnings calls go. For a lot of these bigger companies, you get one question and you move on to the next analyst.
That's a great point.
What's so wrong with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and here's the thing. It's just, I think it's sad and unfortunate all around because I think Steve's right. You don't have to have a press conference. You don't have to call on reporters. You don't have to do a lot of things. But I think it's good for democracy that the President of the United States from time to time gets up and, as he does so often, engages with these members of the press so that they can ask their questions.
Well,
I think it's good for the
I mean, we are living in America where we have free speech and where, I mean, they have to answer reporters' questions. I'm not saying that. I mean, when you you say they don't have to give a press
What I'm
conference.
saying is,
yeah, I guess so, but you do have to speak to the press. You do have to,
correct.
Answer questions. I'm just saying the way that he put on such a show that it was all about him. I think there should be a level of decorum at the White House.
I agree, and that's what I think that we should engage with the press. It's very healthy for democracy. It's great for the rest of the world to witness us doing this. But I think at some point, here's what I think is missing in this discussion, and I think was sad, and an opportunity was missed by both CNN and the White House Correspondents Association, which is this. They should have come forward and say, you know what, we believe in a free press, we believe in access, we believe in transparency, but we also acknowledge that there are rules of decorum and professionalism that should stand as a model for our industry of journalism.
Right.
And they failed to do that. And I think that speaks volumes about the state of journalism today, where they defend this kind of inappropriate, unprofessional behavior that is not only disrespectful to the President of the United States, but disrespectful to other journalists.
Well, that's right. And let me get to this, because there's so much dishonesty going on around this story as well. In fact, I saw it, I have to say, on CNN this morning, and it was incredibly dishonest. Ivanka Trump's lawyer is slamming this report that is alleging that the president's daughter used her private email for government business. Her attorney says this: Ivanka followed protocols like those who transitioned into government before her. His statement reads in part, to address misinformation being peddled about Ms. Trump's personal email, she did not create a private server in her house or office. There was never classified information transmitted. The account was never transferred or housed at the Trump Organization. No emails were ever deleted, and the emails have been retained in the official account in conformity with records preservation laws and rules. So the bottom line is CNN this morning was going crazy about this hypocrisy that Ivanka Trump used a private email. A lot of people in government use private emails. The issue around Hillary Clinton was the fact that she had a server in her home. So there was nothing stopping her from just deleting anything she wanted, because they weren't in White House hands. So again, so much dishonesty in the media about this story. What's your reaction, Sean?
Well, exactly. But actually, I think the bigger issue is that Hillary Clinton was transmitting sensitive and classified information on a unsecure, non-government email. That was the bigger thing. And then she tried to cover it up. And here's the thing that's interesting in that statement. Understand one thing, that what is important about the statement that Ivanka's lawyer issued is that if you use a private email, which you're right, Maria, many government officials do, the question isn't whether you use it. It's whether or not you forward it to your government email or preserve it. That's the key. It's so that the government has a record of government transactions occurring. So it's not a question of using it or not. There are rules about using a personal email in government service, and it's just ensuring that if you do conduct government business, even if it's just routine correspondence, that it's actually housed and maintained for the Presidential Records Act and other applicable laws, which she did.
You can't have a record of it if the server's in your basement. Sean, thank you. Sean Spicer.